Good afternoon, good night to some people, good morning to others, depending on where you at in the world, man. This is Unfiltered Kings podcast. We're back again with you guys, hopefully with another great episode. This one entitled The Five Stages of Relationship Grief. And so hopefully you guys will be able to join us on social media, Unfiltered Kings podcast. You can also check out my personal page. And then we're also filming and recording live on YouTube. And so definitely join us in, get those comments, get those questions ready, and definitely engage in the conversation. And so this will be episode, I believe, number 2 for season 3. Before I get started, I definitely want to allow my co-host to be able to introduce herself to the people for tonight. Dana.
Good evening. Thank you for taking time out of your day to kind of enjoy this moment that we're going to have where we talk about the 5 stages of relationship grief. I do hope you all have a lot of questions, comments, or I do hope that you all kind of join in with us so we can kind of all formulate together what we view the 5 stages of relationship grief to actually look like.
All right. All right. And I'm Jay, again, a part of UKP. We definitely have Carlos and Frankie who's working behind the stages. They're going to be working with you guys behind the scenes, making sure that your comments are being responded to, and also making sure that the ones that we feel that lends itself to the conversation, we can kind of pull them in with this episode. The 5 stages of relationship grief. We'll kind of jump right in. As you noticed last week, we kind of touched on the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence. One thing I think that's unique that we try to do in this setting here, we try to have conversation to each other and not at each other between men and women. And so what we want you to do is put your thinking caps on, right? We try not to get to the point where we have the right answer or the wrong answer. We kind of leave that up to our audience. Now, there are some things that, quite frankly, it is what it is for it when it comes to right or wrong. But we definitely want you to see yourself in these conversations. Don't be afraid to open yourself up. And so the 5 stages of relationship grief. Down one of the biggest misconceptions I think this title I found intriguing that a lot of time when we think of grief, we're thinking of loss, right? Even when we talk about a relationship, we always think about the breakup or it's over, right? But what if I tell you there are some relationships that we could nurture back together? Even in the moments where there are things where one eye don't see the other side, or if there is wrong on one side, there are some situations, excuse me, in honesty, that instead of just rushing to the breakup, what if there are some things that we can do from an emotional intelligence standpoint when dealing with grief that we can kind of nurse it back to health? And so, you guys, pardon me if I'm coughing throughout the night. I'm trying to get over this little bed bug. It's cold weather and came through here in Texas, and so got your boy over here hacking a little bit, but we'll get through it. So first, what we need to do, Dana, let's open up what grief is, right? Still piggybacking on emotional intelligence. We first got to know what the emotion is. A lot of time people make the mistake of feeling the emotion, and that justifies acting on it, right? Without even defining what the emotion is. So in its most simplest term, what is grief? Grief is a natural response to loss, right? That's why a lot of time people are quickly associated in death or loss of a job. But even in a relationship, somebody you've been rocking with, someone you like, when y'all are broken up or not seeing eye, there's a loss, right? There's an emotional loss. Y'all not talking, y'all not vibing. And so that's the context in which we're going to set this stage for the 5 stages of a relationship, grieving. So we want to make sure that people don't get confused with that with the other type of losses that are out there. Now, within these 5 stages, the first stage is denial. Now, if you want to take notes, we'll have this up at the end of the actual podcast, and we'll also have it up on our social media page. So, Dan, if you can kind of just introduce our audience to what denial means as it relates to the 5 stages of relationship, and I think we can kind of open up the conversation from there.
Oh, yes. So essentially, denial is like a person's initial reaction to the relationship when they're actually losing it. So a lot of times people cannot accept the reality that most relationships are they're just over. So in simplest terms, that's really what it is. It's just your initial reaction to the loss of said relationship. But in that, there are ways that I believe people can kind of accept the situation, right? Um, and find other ways to kind of deal with it versus just flat out, kind of denying that it's even a loss in itself. As you said earlier, a lot of times when it comes to relationships and you're grieving them, a lot of people can't accept the fact that it is 100% a loss. That there's probably no way that we're going to come back from that scenario. So denial in itself is just one's reaction to that to the relationship when you find out that, okay, we're coming to our ending point for our time together.
Man, I love what you said because that to me opens up a different way of thinking in the first place. A lot of time when we have challenges in the relationship, especially in today's society, it's so easy. We talk about to throw people away. That's it. We have all these mindsets to justify, which, in all due respect, that is nowhere near emotional intelligence, right? We don't do the job like that, right? We don't do parents. There's so many different sectors in our lives where we don't do that, right? God knows I don't agree with the man in the White House, but I'm not leaving the United States, right? Like I have to learn how to live within the confines of it. So that's what we're talking about. Hopefully, in this conversation, we'll realize the danger of just throwing people away and look at with ourselves. Now, let me say this, and you said something that was very important. When we're talking about these 5 stages, a few things that needs to be understood. First of all, these stages aren't meant to say that they go in order. So if you hear us talk about the 5 stages, it doesn't mean that's the way it appear in reality, right? One, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, they're linear. You can go 1 to 5. You can go 1 to 5 to 4 to 3. Like you can keep going back and within 4. You can go from 1 to 5. You cannot have all 5 stages. What really keys in on which stages you go through and you successfully go through is your emotional intelligence. And so that's why we led with the emotional intelligence piece last week. So now we're dealing with this one emotion of grief. We're talking about denial. Now, as Dana said, denial, we're going to try to talk about the healthy way and the unhealthy way, right? So, like she said initially, denial is recognition, right? Oh my God. There is something going on here based on this actual person here. I can't believe it, usually, what people say, or it's too good to be true. But usually, here's what happens, I think, in a negative way, Dana. Denial is supposed to be a process to figure out. That's how we get to 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Usually, what we've been taught to just numb it out, right? To not deal with that shock and that awe, that reception of something's wrong, like our antennas go up, just numb it out. And I think that's where we go completely off the bridge, so to speak, in handling the wrong way, which we'll talk about in our other stages. One thing that you put in your notes, you said a coping mechanism that allows individuals to gradually process their emotions. Could you talk a little bit more about how denial can be used to kind of explore those other emotions, if you will?
So I obviously it depends on it. It depends on the person when it comes to different coping mechanisms, because there's good coping mechanisms when you're in denial, and there's bad. Right? Some people turn to drinking, because they don't want to, kind of deal with the denial. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna go and drink myself to death or whatever, so that I can kind of like not be in that headspace and understand, my part in this scenario. And then a healthy way that I believe personally is a good way is self-reflection, kind of being able to kind of sit with yourself and understand on your part where you may have went wrong. Like where do you see that this relationship may have took a wrong turn, so that if it was possible that you could come back from this, better for next time. So I gave you a not so good way and a very good way to kind of cope with grief of denial.
I love something you made several good points in there, and I want to make sure. At first when I was thinking about doing this show, I'm like, man, everybody probably won't get this right because this sounds so different than the norm, right? We're talking about
Mhm.
grief. Most people don't think that there's grief involved in disagreements in relationships. And number
Right.
two, most people are used to policing those emotions themselves, right? Hey, if
Hmm.
you're wrong, Anna, there's nothing else for me to do. You're wrong, and I just need to do this right here. But the reality of it is, as we said earlier, how do we get to the point where we quit throwing people away? Because I think by the end of this, what we'll realize, like, yeah, you can go out and find somebody else, but what if that's the one for you? And there's just
Right.
conflict resolution that we need to actually learn, right? And so
Hmm.
I hope that's something that people are thinking kind of outside of the gates. And to your point, like you said, there is a right and a wrong way. And this is where nuance comes in, right? This is what we
Hmm.
talk about those pillars of emotional intelligence, self awareness. Identify what the emotion is first, right? In this case, how many people really think when they're into it with their significant other or whoever that grief is the issue?
Right.
They really think the issue is the issue, right? No, the issue
Hmm.
is using to hide the actual grief. So we don't think about 5 stages of grief and how do we handle that health and whatnot. No, I want the issue fixed. Well, a lot of time the issue can be fixed immediately, right? So
Right.
automatically it becomes a kind of like a pointed backwards and forwards to it. So that self awareness and then that self regulation, like you said, in denial. That's where we're
Hmm.
exploring, right?
Yes.
Okay, F Diane is wrong. Okay, I still need to take some time to understand what she
Hmm.
means to me because if I forget that and just look at her wrong, that's probably not going to be good, right?
Right.
Or that I've done wrong, right? Let me explore this. How did this affect? Give an example of Diana, right?
Yeah.
And I take this time to start understanding what my feelings are should be in
Hmm.
connection to how she actually feels, or do I assume, right?
Yeah.
So as
People
you
love
notice,
to do that.
say it again.
No, I said people love to do that.
Yeah, we usually and that's why y'all always laughing. But I talk about the term low hanging fruit. We usually go for what's
Yeah.
easy, and
Hmm.
emotions just don't work that way. Every time we have an opportunity to grow, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's something we probably haven't done before, right? And so I love the fact that you mentioned that just because we can identify these stages, don't mean that we're handling them all the right way. But usually
Right.
we don't have anyone that are the police, and so whatever that emotion comes, if I deny and shut down, then hey, I'm right.
And then,
Before
a
we
lot of times, sorry, before you move on,
move
a lot
on,
of times too, when it comes to, denial or whatever, I think some people have a hard time with the realization of there's just some things you can't come back from. So.
man, you just ripped it off, right? I think that's is one of the most dangerous things that we don't own about emotional intelligence. Why we don't make it informed
Mhm.
because what if I do and or say something, and we assume there's always
Mhm.
other person, and all the person is wrong, and well that person's not for me, and I was even doing research how Christians. A lot of time we
Yes.
misdiagnose it. Well, God
Mhm.
no, God doesn't justify your negative behavior just because He
Right.
get away with it. But what we
Mhm.
never think, what if that one word and that one action
Mhm.
causes us out on the one?
Yeah.
We can go find another one. We can in this day and age, we can kind of put on the suit and tie and lipstick and dress ourselves to go find another one. But are we really thinking that? No, that was the one, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna let my ego and pride mess that up in the just beginning stage. I'm just gonna deny it and not do the work and not realizing that hey, no, you're not going to find another one like that. So it doesn't always have to be the assumption that it's the negative, and that's another thing that we're trying to challenge in this podcast. They don't have to. Yeah, there are some time where people make mistakes and no coming back. But what if they are made a mistake? But hey, there's a warrant. That was just something that you guys supposed to work through.
Right.
Um, I did have a question for you, Dana. What are some ways that you think men get denial wrong? we're talking about the interaction of a man and woman's relationship, what are some ways you think men get it wrong? Because oftentimes we're not listening, right?
Right.
Sometimes we turn off our emotions. So I want the men out here in the audience to kind of identify and be able to listen to where do we get it wrong. We know that hey, that's a part of it. The denial is there, right? But let's be honest, we all don't use that the right way, right? So
Hmm.
what are some ways do you think that we can get it wrong? And then I'll talk about the opposite.
So I think ways that a lot of men may get it wrong is by, I guess, like putting it on the other person. Um, a lot of times there's no way it could be their fault that they broke up with this person. A lot of times, pride and ego comes through, and they kind of want to portray themselves as the victim, right? What they call it, victim blaming. So when it comes to denial, that's normally what they'll do. They'll do odd things. Um, they'll do odd things to kind of make it to where that it is perceived as if it's not their fault. So they're not necessarily in denial, I guess. It's just they're reaching or trying to make themselves turn out to be like some type of hero and their partner kind of the villain in the story.
Mm. So some gaslighting that's going on in there. We hijack
Yes.
the emotions that should be there, and we'll just inaccurately place the emotions that we feel should be the
Right.
solution there.
Right.
That very much so is dangerous, and I think
Very
that
dangerous.
that's probably one of the biggest things when I was researching denial is that it's supposed to take time to address the emotions that are there, right? That
Hmm.
are factual. That are okay, Diana, you hurt me, or I hurt Diana. But a lot of time, to your point, maybe we add these other emotions or have nothing to do with it just to put me in the defense because I don't want
Yeah.
to deal with mine, so to speak, right?
Right. Right.
And so it's a little bit of gaslighting because as long as I can put these other emotions and make you speak on these emotions,
Hmm.
you'll never have to deal with the emotion that I caused, damage that I caused.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, okay. I would even say that's the same. I think that's a human thing, right? I definitely want to give an opportunity for you to speak from a woman's standpoint, but I think even with men toward women, I think oftentimes we do that and we think that's a healthy sense of denial where instead of talking about the real issues that are there,
Hmm.
we perceive these issues. And a lot of times, Dan, I think it comes from being a victim.
Hmm. I agree.
Because being a victim is comfortable. I don't have to
What was
do
me?
much. Well, it's me, right? Like
Hmm.
everything is supposed to change because I am the victim. And I
Yes.
think that's been my experience is that, and again, when we're talking about that, we got to give a disclaimer, Dana. We're not bashing all men, all women. We're just talking about identifying ways that we've seen in our experience, right? You put
Correct.
yourself
Correct.
in, you speak your truth, right? But I think a
Yes.
lot of times being in that victim mindset, watch this, even if you are the victim, it's not a chair to get comfortable in, right? There's still a
Right.
proactive way to go from victim to victor. But I think a
Hmm.
lot of times those who have been used to being the victim or have justified being the victim in everything, it's always the other person. It's
Hmm.
always that. It's never enough for me to come out of my comfort zone and look at the emotion like, is it something that I could have done? Is it something that I took wrong? Is it something that I don't know? So I think a lot of times that denial mixing with that victim mindset, again, it starts it off on the road to where it's like you've already kind of lost before you've even started, so to speak. And so again, we're talking about the 5 stages of relationships of grief. Grief is just a loss, right? It doesn't mean they have to be dead or loss of a job, but we're just talking about the loss of that communication, the loss of that interaction. We're talking about just normal disagreements in relationship between men and women. And a lot of time we assume that it's over or we cut off communication. But what if I could tell you that there are 5 stages where we're grieving that relationship that we probably can put some of these things back together if we practice emotional intelligence, right? And so we talked about the first one, which is denial, how that could be a healthy way to where it allows us to start exploring the true emotions, whether some been done toward us or some we done. Or we talked about the healthy way to where we just shut down, become the victim, and no one can be right except for us. Um, I'm gonna read this last statement that you sent over, and then I'm gonna move on. You said denial can be a time for the mind to absorb the shock of the loss. In this day and age where we're so tough, right? We're
Mhm.
so I gotta show that I don't care. I gotta show like where's the
Mhm.
pride in that? I've never gotten that, you know, and you see that on men and women to where
Right. Both
oh, you
sides.
care about, but you embolden yourself to where like you start playing this side game where who's tough, who's gonna break first, and but that's a time to allow your mind to calm down. And if the reality of it is, I don't want to lose this person. Let's get on that track. Why, Dana? If and I know I'm probably putting you on the spot, but why do you think people easily jump to that tough, hard? Well, you go first. Like, why is that an easier route instead of the self reflection? If there's someone I care about and I know I can't replace them or they mean this much to me, let's try to make this work.
So, again, I do believe that, both women, men and women have pride, right? So a lot of times when it comes to relationships where you're kind of like breaking off and you're both parties are kind of like, oh, I don't care about X, Y, and Z. A lot of times it's due to what they've told other people, right? Because
Mhm.
a lot of times when you break up with somebody or you're like in that stage of kind of like this is about to be done, you start bashing your partner to, what I'm saying, your uncle, your auntie, all your cousins, your friends and stuff. So you can't necessarily kind of negate the scenario and be like, oh yeah, I know I said all these things, but I still, love this person. Because at that point, you basically just told everybody that your partner was a monster. So
Wow.
if you try to, kind of go back to your partner, now they're looking at you crazy like, wait, you just said that this person was like a horrible person, they weren't treating you right, and this, that, and the third, but yet you're making your way back. So you have to, so a facade has to come to pass. You have to put on some type of face to kind of save yourself, from going back to that person, at least, in the beginning, so that it doesn't, like, what I'm saying, you were kind of just putting this person out to be something that they really weren't. So
Wow. That's a whole nother piece within itself.
mhm.
Well, I think that could be a whole podcast, but I think it sets up the next stage perfectly.
Yeah.
A lot of time in anger, people always associate anger as this bad, negative thing, but there is a healthy way and an unhealthy way of using it. And I would think the crazy part of what you said down there, here's this person you care about, you love, and
Mhm.
want to be with, but all of a sudden you finding yourself having to defend the very negative things you said about the person.
Mhm.
And then notice the person quits being the main priority. It's the family and friends and the looks, if you
Right.
will, the
Right.
people. That's interesting how quickly that changes from just a misunderstanding, right?
Mhm.
And so I point that out because it shows how it's so important for us to have that emotional intelligence from the get go. That's the foundation, right? While we're
Yeah.
dealing with grief. So let's explore this next one. Next stage, anger. If you can talk a little bit about anger, down and now, a lot of time people gonna probably like anger is a bad thing, and every emotion is valid. God gave them to
Mhm.
us, right? It's
Yeah.
how we use them and how we act on them. It's the accountability. Remember, pillar two in emotional intelligence, self regulation, accountability. So I wanna say this before down and go. Even if your mate did something wrong and you become angry, that's not a justification. We live in this day and age again. Oh, I'm done. Oh, yeah, you did. Oh, you pissed me off. No, not necessarily. So, Dan, if you can talk a little bit about stage two anger as it relates to relationship grief.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, this one also is short and sweet. Um, after the denial stage, you kind of go into the anger stage, which is basically you experiencing frustration and rage, right? Often, sometimes at the person, at the scenario, or even at yourself, where you kind of you kind of spiral out, and everything just upsets you. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't even really matter. Who's in I'm stuttering. It doesn't even matter like what it is. Like somebody could ask you, "Hey, pass me a cup," and because that scenario has you so like in an uproar, you will begin to spiral and get angry at whatever. So that's
Yeah, and
basically what anger would look like in
yeah,
the 5 stages of grief.
yeah, and I want to explore this right quick because I think that's why I said this is not necessarily a checklist. This is linear. You can be all over the place. And the only thing that's going to get you through this gambit, if you will, is emotional intelligence. And so hopefully, again, we can see the importance how we downplay emotional intelligence because we think if I feel it, I should be able to act on it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
surely anger is an emotion, right? People
Right.
make us angry. But I think a lot of time people get lost in this one right here, right? Um, for example, someone cut me off on the road. I'm chasing them down the street. Gives me a right. No, it doesn't, right? And so I think a lot of times, in relationship, even if something is done initially, right? Because remember, denial, that's why I'm supposed to be exploring the fact of the matter. Let's get some
Mm-hmm.
accountability. Is this right or wrong what I'm thinking? But a lot of time we slip easily from denial. We don't even give that time. We go straight to
Right.
anger. And
Yeah.
anger, and that's why I put up on the screen, frustration and rage. Those are what we consider two negative components. And usually what happens, unfortunately, if I feel it, I got to get that out.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta help you understand. Now watch this. The problem, we ain't even talking about the problem no more. This anger, this frustration, this rage, and usually what we do, fight or flee.
Yeah.
Right?
Fight or flight.
We shut down, up, that's it. No, no. Or we fight. But we don't know how to fight in a healthy way. Right? So we give this permission for this frustration and rage, although those are feelings. But again, to your point, it boggles my mind even to this day how easy it is for us to forget who this person is. Did I sign up to be with a perfect human being?
Right.
No. This person meant something. That's what blows my mind. And I know there are different situations for everybody down there, but people 10 years in, 20-year marriage, up, like that blows my mind. Like, did you all really try to fight for each other and not fight to be right? And to me, I think unfortunately, anger is too often the first and last emotion that we can resonate with. Like we're not even grieving anymore. We're handling the grief with anger,
Correct.
right? We're handling with the frustration and the rage that comes within self. So now the other person don't even have a chance, right? And again, keep in mind, even if what they did was wrong, well, when you went wrong, don't you want a fair chance to be able to fix it? Right? Um, I like what you put in your notes. You said anger is a natural response to feeling powerless and is often expressed through irritability or blame. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I think self-regulation can really set in. A lot of time we feel powerless. That person is gone, and you're not calling, you're not talking on the phone anymore. You're not hanging out anymore. Okay, that's a sense of powerlessness, right? You
Right.
miss that, but there we go again. We just kind of put the numbness on there. We just get angry and bitter and frustrated by that. Then a simple conversation, a simple text, a simple phone call. Hey, this is how I'm feeling. How can we resolve this? But again, we much rather deal with it with the anger of it, make that person wrong because they don't know this and they're not responding the way that now we don't put in our head. And now we feel powerless, which the reality of it is there's always a chance where you can do something, right? It just depends on how deep you done dug in with your anger. And it goes back to your point. Now, if I done said somewhere, done something that
Mm-hmm.
there's no coming back to, well, it's different. right? That was self-imposed.
Well, and
Um,
then anger, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Anger is one of those stages where, that probably would be a thing, right? A lot of times people are expressing, themselves, and when they're angry or, they're frustrated about about other people, or well, about the person that they're having the issue with. Sometimes when they are angry, they do say things that, you know can, make or break a scenario. um, so I think with that too, even though anger, can be, obviously it is an emotion that you will utilize, but you have to be mindful of what you say when you're angry, because again, the tongue is very powerful. It can break a lot of,
Yeah,
people's spirits, just by what
yeah,
you are, or what you are portraying to a person and what you're saying to them. So in moments when you are angry, you know a lot of times, like you said, if you just kind of like self-reflect in that moment, like, okay, I know I'm probably going to say something that, may not be, good for this moment. So
yeah.
maybe we need to table this moment so that, later we can come and, when I'm a little cooled off, and talk about it.
You're right. And you know what I find interesting, in doing my studies, the anger is usually in stage two of relationship grief. It's usually directed toward the situation, others, or themselves. Now, here's what I found, Dan. It's easy to get angry at the situation. It is easier to get angry at the other person. How often we get angry at ourselves.
We don't.
And I'm not talking about the victim anger. I should have never let her. I should have.
Right.
I should have gave my like we self-regulation, accountability. Like there are times where the proper anger has to be with us in the fact that, man, this continued behavior, I'm risking hurting someone that I love.
They
My
don't think about that.
my inability to handle my emotions intelligently so they can understand my emotions. Right? Watch this. Even if they're wrong, I blow up on them.
Hmm.
Wait a minute. So unless they be perfect, they have to look forward to me. Inability to communicate effectively. We talked about that, right?
Yep.
When I see something wrong, I go in my head, I lash out on them, passive aggressive or even aggressive. And so I find it interesting how we validate that anger, yes, toward the situation, even toward others, but how often do we honestly reflect it toward ourselves and not from that victim mindset, right? Wait a minute, this person been rocking for me for a minute. Even though they know these are my reactions, man, I kind of owe it to myself to not put the relationship in it. So again, that's why you'll see that these five stages are not just automatically in order. Depending on our emotional intelligence, depends on how quick we overlook one, stay there,
Yep.
or justify just staying in one space instead of going throughout the other one. But the reality of it is, even in anger, we have to find a healthy way. Now, again, we're talking about in the context. Of course, it's easy just to throw people away.
Right.
That shouldn't be the mindset that we're actually in. But in this day and age, it's so easy to throw people away because it absolves us for doing the hard work, right? Especially when you
Hmm.
include that four-letter word in there, LOVE. It takes that responsibility off the table, and then I just get stuck in denial, and I just kind of move on with the rest of my life, so to speak, right? With no
Yeah.
accountability to myself and others. Um, Anger can manifest in various ways, such as isolation from others. That's what I kind of want to, if you can kind of expand on, because I think a lot of times people think there's a difference between being aggressive and being passive aggressive, you know. So that withdrawal, if you will. Well, I just won't be around the person. Or I'll just quit calling. Or no, I'll kind of just go back to like we don't know each other, so to speak. Could you talk on how dangerous dangerous that is, or how volatile that is in context of this is a person that this is a healthy, for the most part, a healthy relationship, and y'all just have a disagreement, and we allow that anger to get us to that point.
So when you isolate from the person, I I think they call it silent treatment, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just be like, all right, for 3 days, I'm not talking to you, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So in those 3 days, of you kind of not talking to that person, I guess that's a person's way of kind of getting back at them for whatever they were angry with them about. So the communication has faltered, and they're no longer communicating with each other. So the danger of that scenario is a lot of times people think that when you get somebody the silent treatment, that you're actually hurting the person. It isn't a form of abuse, right? Emotional abuse, because now this person is just in their head, like, oh, they're not talking to me, like I don't know what's going on. Like that can really drive somebody, you know, I won't say crazy, but like it can really mess with your head because this is a person that you've communicated with, you know, day in and day out, and then because of a scenario, they're now angry at you and they don't want to talk. So it kind of funnels your relationship, like your bond. It kind of depletes it in a sense because it's like, dang, if we can't even we can't have this disagreement or argument or whatever and come back, after the fact, and then you're going to give me the silent treatment for a few days. Like, how will we be better in the future? And sometimes people don't care because they're like, oh, I don't care if you're not talking to me. Like, I don't want to talk to you anyways. So a lot of times too, it can be bad for the person that's doing it, but good for the person that they're doing it to, because sometimes it backfires. Okay, you're not talking to me. Now you're making things easier for me to determine if I want to still be in this relationship.
Yeah, and to me, Dan, I'm gonna say this as a just from having experience as a certified life coach, when I hear those behaviors easily ran to, I somewhat question the commitment in the first place, right? Because if we talked about emotion intelligence, when I thought about this, the four pillars, I thought about empathy,
Hmm.
understand another person's point of view. So
Hmm.
even if I've wronged them, I have to understand, like, man, how did this really make them feel? So even in my anger, I communicate that, right?
Right.
Hey, Dan, I don't want to say right now. I'm feeling this way. So just give me a few moments. Let's talk about that. Like you said, I still want to just hang them out there, right? Or just cut it off, right? Because I think a lot of time, and we go back to that victim mindset, we blend cause and effect.
Hmm.
Right? That's where the gaslight leads to. I judge your effect on you while overlooking my cause of your reaction. So I hold you accountable for your action, your reaction to my actual action. Mine's justified, right? Because if I'm angry,
Hmm.
hey, I just know you made me angry. Well, that presents two problems. First of all, you holding your mate to the standard of perfection, and then number two, at what point in time do you all come together and really deal with that? It takes two to tango, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so that isolation, to your point, is interesting to where now the other person has to make a decision now, right?
Hmm.
Like what do? They sit there and just wait all day and don't know where your mind is at and things of that sort? Or do they make a conscientious effort? Okay, this is how this person treating their emotion and not communicating. Now, what's going to happen when I finally put my true emotions on the table? Probably not going to have any room to deal with mine, right?
Right.
Because once we get angry, I think from a healthy standpoint, that isolation is to make sure that anger don't spill out
Hmm.
on my mate. But that anger should be dissipated to make sure I still hold on to my mate, right? It's not a
Right.
green light, just go from 0 to 60. And so this stage right here, I believe that's why a lot of people um, stop at this stage and get lost, because that anger is really the end all be all. Screw love, screw liking the person, screw all these great feelings we had about them, kind of like you said. Now I got to tell the world, because I'm preparing my departure right here,
Mm-hmm.
that anger stage, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then once all this stuff has been said and I'm told it in my mind long enough, oh, it's just easy for me to exit stage left. So we're talking about the 5 stages of relationship grief. A loss, right? Grief is a simple loss. And so a lot of time it doesn't have to be in the breakup stage, but it sometimes can be in those rough patches in a relationship. And so we've identified, how do we get through those patches, right? Not everything is an end all be all. And so a lot of time what we realize is that we're grieving when we go through these miscommunications. Things are changed. Things are not as sweet as they used to be. And so we talked about denial. That's what it's shocking all, right? We can't believe it's true. We didn't think that we would have to deal with this. We talked about anger. We slipped there and we started getting frustrated and a lot of rage there. And we talked about how these things can be used in the right way or the wrong way. And ultimately, if we don't have the end goal to be an us, where there can be an us, then guess what? We can get derailed in these
Mm-hmm.
stages. So the next stage is bargaining. I really had fun with this one. I'm not gonna lie to you, Diana.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump into bargaining as the third stage in the 5 stages of relationship grief. If you can introduce to the audience what bargaining is, and we'll have a good conversation on that.
Oh yeah. So yes, bargaining is basically when one party is trying to regain control. So they try to, you know, propose certain things to you or say certain things to kind of reel you back in to the scenario so that the grieving process is kind of like non-existent.
Quick fixes.
Yes.
To
Band-aids.
quick fixes. Band-aid on a broken arm, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, this is why I say it's more of a reflection of self. And when I say this, you guys understand that there are people out here who have been through a lot. And some
Yes.
people, for whatever reason, just can't practice emotional intelligence without help, outside help. Let's just be honest. So I don't want us to look at this as that's a bad person who can't do these things. You don't know what a
Right.
person's background is, right? You got people who've
Mm-hmm.
been through verbal abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse. Um, these things are not justifications, but they are reasons that if you go without help, people act differently when it comes to their second communities of relationships, right? So if they've had any of these things happen in their first community, even their second community, it does affect. So I want to kill that misnomer that if people act this way, we'll stay out from around them, because we probably have so many people in our families, in our friend
Mm-hmm.
circle. We probably have so many people that we go with
Mm-hmm.
as friends, right? But we have to also realize what we can help with and what we can help with, and pray to God that, hey, they can get the actual help. But it's not a justifiable reason, again, to just throw people away. Like, to me, that will never be the answer, right? So when we get to that third stage of bargaining, it is the quick fix, right? You haven't gotten
Mm-hmm.
any help, you haven't identified any emotions. Usually, what you're doing, you're on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This worked in the past. Guess what? This have to work now. Now, could you imagine? And I said this, putting a band-aid on a broken arm. Yes, band-aids worked in the past, but band-aids work for certain injuries. But if
Right.
that's all I know, put a band-aid on, it's going to heal. Could
Mm-hmm.
you imagine trying to
Directly.
get a band-aid on a broken arm? Well, clearly, you may say common sense, well, James, that's not going to work. But understand, some people don't have that emotional intelligence. And again, that's not a knock. Some people have been placed in the position or have put themselves in a position by being an outdated victim. And when I say an
Mm-hmm.
outdated victim, that means you sat in that victim chair too long. There was no resolve. There was no action item to say, okay, how can I get back to be a victor? Because when it's
Right.
all said and done, yes, there are victims. There's not a time frame on it. There's no magical way. But ultimately, you have to choose, do you want to continue to be a victim, or do you want to be a victor? That no one can make you be that. I don't care what it is, but that's just a hard truth, right? And so sometimes people sit in that victim mindset that they have not afforded themselves to learn. They think that life done went on down, and so guess what? Hey, it worked
Right.
then. And that's where
Yeah, we
foreign
can do it
manipulation
again.
comes from, right? Oh, that make
Hmm.
that person bad, something wrong with them, they really not this. Even if they have to not deal with the fact, but then you cut from them. Wait a minute. You study picking the same type of people. So if that's the case, it gotta be something wrong with you too, right? So it's no
Hmm.
accountability. It's no empathy, right? And so we look for those quick fixes, right? Even to the point, and I'll say this again to my Christian family. Sometimes we'll throw God on it.
Yep.
Well, God, you just bring her back to me. No, that person
Hmm.
has to choose whether they want God, believe in God, right? Or God, I won't do this no more if you give me one more. No, God gave me a chance when I was with them. I just didn't take the opportunity. So a lot of time we as Christians, we think we just put our hands together, we'll pray, and where two or more gather, so is God. Well, no, not the case. It puts a premium on what are we doing when we're in a position to do right by ourselves and we're doing right by people, right? Like you can't bargain your way back in. And a lot of times, even though Dan I may know what to say and what to do,
Hmm.
that becomes tired, right? As a woman, after a while, it's kind of like hey, same script, different day, right?
Hmm. Patterns.
Right? Yeah, ultimately become the pattern. And the sad reality that I see down is that instead of looking for the quick fix, down why is it so hard not to get the help? Some of
No,
the stuff,
too much
all the stuff
sense.
ain't all deep, right? Like you don't have to, you don't have to be this psychologist or some of this stuff is just self reflection. Hey, I can look back every time I handled that the wrong way, right?
Mhm.
Like, why is it so hard to go with the quick fix than just, you know what, this person means this much to me. Let me just get the help that I need, right?
That would make too much sense.
Or watch this. We too busy want the other person to get help to fit my
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah. That too.
You go get the help. Something wrong with you, Dan, right? So if those bargaining chips that I offer, if you can see through the fact that there is no true change, there's no true commitment to us, there's no true commitment to higher emotional intelligence, now you're wrong because you're not accepting me for who I am. That could be the problem. When we talked about that anger, what if sometimes I got to reflect, like I said in emotional intelligence, I had to get to the point that I realized I was an ugly good person.
Hmm.
And then, although that hurt like hell. Because I had to realize if I'm an ugly good person to my mate, I'm an ugly good person to mama, daddy, my son.
Hmm.
Ooh, you got to go back and revisit all of them. But at some point in time, I had to ask myself, I'm tired of being a victim. It's not always everybody's fault, especially when I'm seeing this playing out at the same time. And now I got to keep swallowing my vomit, so to speak. And so, yeah, that bargaining tool, I think a lot of time when used in an unhealthy way, man, it can really take us completely off the rails, so to speak. Now, from a healthy standpoint, Dan, okay, Dan, if you give me an opportunity, give me time to get my head right. Hey, let's set a time where we can set aside to come back and revisit this. See, that's bargaining. I've included you into where I was at, and I've set a time frame in which you know, hey, let's have this conversation.
Right.
Hey, Diana, I just need to get some stuff on my chest. Can you just give me 5 minutes without responding? Let me just get this out. Hey, Diana, how do you feel when I say this? How do you feel when I so let me get you right. When I do this, you feel see that's the proper way in which we should bargain, where it's two. We're
Hmm.
not forcing one to become before the other. And so notice it does not a lot of times matter who's in the right or who is in the wrong. Yeah, other than
Right.
accountability, right?
Hmm.
But who's handling these five stages in the most healthy way to where we ultimately not just throwing people away? And watch this, we're not learning. We're not strengthening our conflict resolution. We're not becoming emotionally intelligent in case if that emotion comes back again in a different person, we're ready for it. You got anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah. So, talking about bargaining, I think a lot of times too with bargaining, it's like say your partner had a problem with drinking, right? And you're like, hey, you know, it's not gonna cut it. Like I've been asking you for however long to, kind of, either simmer down or, go to AA or AAA, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
And your partner's and you, so you're like, I gotta head out because like this is doing like way more damage to me than I was prepared for. And like you're getting ready to walk out, and your partner's like, no, wait, I'll stop drinking. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
They're like, if you just stay, I'll stop drinking. That's another unhealthy way of bargaining because it's like they're like, oh, well, now that you're about to leave me, I have to figure out a way to keep you. So I'll give you at this point what you want. You want me to stop drinking? Okay, I got you. But what I don't think people understand is when it comes to bargaining something like that, when a person has a problem like that they don't see it is a problem, they're really not going to stop doing it because at that moment they're only doing it or portraying that they're going to do it is because it's for you. A person who sees no wrong in what they're doing, they're not going to be able to change something as serious as that. They would have to in themselves see that, okay, to me this is a problem, so I need to fix it. Me telling you that it's a problem, you could care less. But
Yeah.
if you and yourself knew that that was an issue, you would make sure you did what you need to do to rectify, what I'm saying, the scenario.
Yeah.
Or it's something along the lines of, if only I could have, if only I do X, Y, and Z, or I will do all these things that you were asking me to do. That's another unhealthy way of bargaining because it's like, dang, like I've been asking you to do this for like I don't know, maybe 6 months to a year, and you haven't
Yeah.
done it. And now that I'm getting ready to walk away, now you want to do all these things. Me personally, if I was in a scenario as such, to me it would be an insult because it's like, dang, like it took me kind of walking away for you to be like, oh, I got you, babe. I'm gonna do all these
Yeah.
things now. Don't you worry.
Yeah. And you know what that's called? Manipulation is a form of bargaining.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%.
Um, I think it is very dangerous um, to manipulate someone in thinking that you're changing with them when you're really changing just to keep them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
For them, yep. Mm-hmm.
If you're wrong in something, you first have to want it for yourself. And this is why I talk about the victim mindset, right? Like you can have something that someone wronged you in your past in a past relationship that your mate does that's wrong, but they didn't do it wrong in the context of the other person, right? A lot of times we try to find out what to say and what to do in a vacuum instead of just taking the time, effort, and energy to really change for ourselves. And the reason why that's important because if I make a conscious change to better myself, then I should want somebody to stand that's willing to stand by my side, know my wrongs, know my faults, and they will stay there and be committed. And that's why I say take the conditions off of the conditional love we try to give each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as that condition happens, you're gonna see what you really have. Fight or flee. Either you all will fight for it or you'll be fighting by yourself. The other person just gonna run and do what's always normal to them. It was the you problem, you find yourself by yourself. But if you take the conditions off of it in the beginning, when you explore someone who's willing to stand by your side, want to work it out, then guess what? It ain't no problem with them sitting there knowing that you're going to get the help. But not just lying to them though. Not just saying what it is in the moment, you know what I'm saying, to kind of get them back in your good graces. Because what does that resolve? Especially like you allude to, if it's an issue that's repeating over and over, that should tell self-regulation, accountability. Man, you know what? Baby girl, let me go get some more help on this. And I appreciate your support. If nothing else, give me your prayers or whatever. But hey, let me go get some help because ultimately, yeah, it can be easy for me to just leave and I can do whatever I want. But if I feel like I got the right one, let me hold on to that because now it becomes about you. Now let me look at the empathy. Damn, how does that make you feel every time I say one thing and I do another one? That's not fair to you, right? And so that's why that bargaining can be used from a healthy standpoint, unhealthy standpoint. Yeah, fight for it. Yeah, do sometimes you have to do those temporary fixes, but you have to make the decision to get the long term help, right? If not, then you're just doing quick fixes, band-aid on the broken oil. And a lot of times we have been through so much, Diana, that we think just because we're still going in life, that make us feel like a victor. Y'all got through that. Yeah, our Christian people, yeah, God helped me get through that. Mm-mm. God grace got you through it to put you in a position to go get the help you need. It have nothing to do with you, to be honest. He just protected you to get through that thing to help you make a decision. Do I go get the help that I actually need? And so bargaining definitely can be used from a negative standpoint or for a positive standpoint. We're almost all our way through the 5 stages of relationship grief. We talked about denial. We talked about anger. We talked about bargaining. Now, uh, Dana, we're going to talk about one that I feel we could spend forever on, but we're going to talk about depression. If you can kind of introduce that to the audience, and then we'll kind of explore that.
Depression is a quiet stage of grief, running from raw emotions or trying to cope with the magnitude of the loss.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of time we find ourselves here when we don't even have to. Not saying all the time, but we're talking about a relationship grief. This is finally where we're. This is what we're doing all our talking here. It's all in our head. Kind of like you alluded to earlier, we have now convinced the yes people to be our allies, right? That's usually why we don't go get professional help and things of that sort because of fear that we're going to be exposed. So now this is straight defense. And this is why I'm talking about the depression that's not warranted, right? No depression is
Mhm.
good, but this is when it's just not warranted. We've inflicted upon ourselves. A lot of time we confuse it with the issue. We quit dealing with the issue, right? Running from raw emotion. That anger is everywhere. It's
Mhm.
just everywhere. We haven't taken the time to sit down and talk with the other person. Even if, like I said, if the other person calls in anger, hey, you made me upset. We haven't had that conversation with them. We haven't given them a chance to address it. We haven't given them a chance to fix it. These just emotions. I feel it, Diana. I'm gonna act on
Right.
it. Right? I'm at
Mhm.
work. She let me know about my business and whatnot. But in the back of our head, we still dealing with it. But I gotta be strong for everybody, right? I gotta show everybody there ain't nothing wrong with me. You know what I'm saying? Our Christian folk, God got me. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to do nothing. God knows my. But the raw emotions are there, and they usually come out like the thing said, quiet stage of grief,
Mhm.
when we're alone, when we're no longer having to convince nobody, when we're sitting by ourselves, right, late at night, we're not sleeping. We
Not
know our.
sleeping, not eating,
Yeah,
probably excessively drinking.
yeah. Turn into our
Mhm.
vice. And here's the sad
Mhm.
part about this type of depression. Even if we convince the whole world to believe us, we know our truth. We know it's really us. And what we're battling depression is that we're now on the borderline of realizing, have I lost a good person?
Mhm.
Simply could have done this. Now this is quiet because we realize, man, I'm wearing way down this road. Oh my goodness. It was 4 stop signs that I could have.
Mhm.
So we make up our mind, I gotta stand on it now. Even in our quiet time when we realize, man, you better go get that good. That was a good one, bro. But our pride gets in the way, right? And we wonder why we sick. And we try to hide this depression, right? But it manifests itself sometimes more than others because sometimes the sad reality is we have a trained behavior, and that's scary. That's a whole nother conversation where we can
Right.
train ourselves to act and function in normality. But the reality of it is, we're depressed and empty on the inside. Trying to
Well,
come with a go ahead.
that's why therapy is so important.
Yeah. When we find ourselves keep coming to these things, and that's why I said, even though it could be a situation between the relationship, sometimes we just got to come to our mate and say, hey, Diana, this is bigger than us. I got to go get this for me.
Yes.
Now, if you decide to stand around home and down pray for, I greatly appreciate it. Here's what I'm going to do. But I got to go get this for me. Because if I don't
Mm-hmm.
go get this for me, I can't do nothing for myself. And I can't do nothing for myself, Diana, you're going to always be a far second. And I think if we gave some people that part of honesty, then I think we can tap into where life becomes love and where the conditions we put on love can become unconditional because we're giving them a fair chance.
Right.
Even if it's a fair chance, like you alluded to earlier, you know what? I'm not there yet. I think we should just fall back. Well, that's a
Mhm.
decision, right? Hey, let me let you go do that, and let's circle back around and see. But that's a fair decision, right? It was just a throwaway to where I'm right, you wrong, going about my business. And I never get the help, like you said. Usually if an issue is repetitive, that's a sign that I need outside help,
Yes, correct.
right? Because I'm gonna always continue to bleed over on people, even if it's unintentional. That's why I said again, take away this misnomer that that person is a bad person. I'm not. We're not talking about
Mhm.
that in context. That
Right.
person would just not have had anybody to show them the right way. So out of life, they have repeatedly learned the wrong way until a part this became a part of their personality. That's all they know. All they know is to fight. All they know is to flee, even when it's not time to flee. Even then, when they're in a time of peace, they're fighting. Even when there could be a potential victor,
Hmm.
being the victim. A victim got to protect itself. A victim got to
Every
be on
time.
right. And if that person comes from that background, and this is why I think it's important when we talk about effectively communicating, do you have those conversations, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, and I'm not suggesting down that you can make someone go get the help. No, you may have
Right.
to make a decision. Hey, if this person refusing to get the help, now I got to make a decision, and that's hard, right? That's a
Right.
real decision. That's where that real depression comes in. Because man, I really tough for this person. Thought this person was, but that's where the real stage come from of depression. Man, I got to realize that I might not be able to live the life that I want to live with this person,
Hmm.
right? That may bring on some anger. There we go. It's unlinear. Go back to anger. Dang, now I'm pissed off because man, I had this life plan right here. Sometimes it's hard to deny that, which a lot of times that self-inflicted pain on us, we go back to there. Well, that's not her. She'll get it right. No, that's who that person is, right?
Hmm.
We got to be honest with that. And so, definitely, that depression is it justified and one that we can go through and not stay there, or is this depression self-implied? Because bottom line, we know the truth. Bottom line, what we're doing now, Dan, we just gonna dig in, hold our ground, right? Or turn to like someone put uh, uh, with that depression becomes unchecked, and you combine that with anger. Now you turn to
Hmm.
addiction, alcoholism. So what you're doing, you're avoiding it altogether.
Yeah, of course.
You
Because you don't
know,
want to feel.
yeah. And keep in mind, like we said, this is even if someone done something to offend you,
Hmm.
it's not a justification to throw a person away. Hell, if I go out and break a law, they're gonna stand before a judge to at least let me get my fair say. Right?
Hmm.
They're not just gonna throw me in jail, lock me up forever. So again, I want to honestly understand this is not a pass to just X people off or cut people off or even if they done the wrong, it's all on them. One thing I had to learn in my divorce, yeah, she cheated. That was the easy answer. But what I found when I went through counseling, there was a lot of other things that I wasn't listening to God about. Uh oh.
Hmm.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that first primary wrong, obviously.
Right.
But bottom line, I think we mess up down when we don't realize we can always become better
Correct.
if we're able to admit I'm wrong. That hurt the other person. And like you said, one of the worst things I can do is just avoid that.
Hmm.
That's a great opportunity when someone tells us that what we did or said is wrong. That's a great opportunity that a lot of time we don't get to have that opportunity again, right? We talk about grief with a loved one, from a loved one in death. If we use that for example, how often have we wronged a loved one, they wronged us or whatever? Long story short, someone passes away.
Hmm.
You don't get to set that right.
Right.
Right? Now it's too late. So if you have that opportunity,
Mhm.
man, yeah, depression is a real thing, but use it in a way to where those right emotions don't just pile up on each other, and you just deal with the loss, and the person's one phone call away, one text away, one drive away. Man, we almost at home. We
Almost
almost
there.
on forward base. The 5 stages of relationship grief. Hopefully, you guys have been hanging there with us, man. I want to thank Carlos and Frank in the background. If you guys have any questions, comments about any of these things that we're actually discussing, don't hesitate to let us know. We'll try to get some of these comments in. Leave them on social media, wherever you're watching this at, even on our YouTube. We'll have people checking that. And so we've been talking about the 5 stages of relationship grief. A lot of time we think grief is just a loss of a loved one or in death, but sometimes grief can just be in a simple misunderstanding with our actual mate. And so where we usually just throw that person away, cut off communication, we realize that there are 5 stages of relationship grief that we can walk through. And we can use these stages either in a good way and in a bad way, right? We talked about
Hmm.
denial. We talked about anger. We talked about bargaining. We even talked about depression, right? The final piece that we want to deal with is acceptance. And so, Dan, if you can kind of explain to our audience what this stage looks like and deal with, then we'll go from there.
Okay, so acceptance is when you are coming to terms with the reality of the loss and finding a way to move forward. So basically, you're accepting that this relationship probably is no longer going to be a thing. So with that acceptance, um, I think a lot. It's important for people to kind of self reflect um, on the scenario, and if at all possible, um, kind of take it in, kind of reel in what's happening, and find a healthy way forward so that you don't, I guess, revert back to the other stages.
Yeah,
Because it's easy to say, okay, I accept, this is a thing, but then you go off and do a whole bunch of nonsense
yeah,
instead of kind of just, taking it all in and understanding that, hey, okay, just because this door is closing, don't mean that another door won't open. But with that, I know now I need to do some work on myself to come to terms with what's happening to me so that I can be a better person for the future.
yeah. To me, this is the most critical stage to where I think self-regulation, when we talk about the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence, having some type of accountability has to sit in. And I think this is the most trickiest one, Dana, because sometimes we accept the wrong thing.
Hmm.
Sometimes we accept the wrong outcome because we haven't completely did the job, right? It's
Right.
almost like when Mama said clean that room, and we sweep everything up under the bedroom and throw everything in the closet. Mama come in there and say, "Okay, you can
Mhm.
go outside." Well, of course we've accepted it because we got what we think we wanted. But the reality of it is,
Right.
when Mama find out that house ain't clean yet, guess what? It's
Hmm.
usually a lot more worse, right? And I think this
Correct.
is the thing where that real accountability has to be. All that we don't take an opportunity to deal with someone that cares for us, the reality of it is, I've always said that I've never known someone to protect themselves from being hurt. I've never known someone to successfully protect themselves from being hurt. It's a part of life. And usually all this stuff just continues to pile up. Cool mama tied out of sight, out of mind. Even though we learn, kind of like you said, we learn how to move the next time. We
Mhm.
lie to ourselves, act like that didn't happen, act like that person don't
Mhm.
exist. That's bargaining. Putting bandana on a broken arm. So we have accepted that person not there, but we've accepted it based on lies, right? We've overlooked the fact that we hurt somebody. We
Right.
overlooked the fact that we didn't give that person a chance because guess what? If
Mhm.
I do something wrong, I'm gonna want someone to be there for me. I'm gonna want someone to
Right.
listen. I want an opportunity
Mhm.
to apologize and fix that. So even though from a negative standpoint we've accepted it, but we only accepted on lies, right? So from that healthy standpoint, yeah, we can get to the point to accept, Dan, I was wrong.
Yes.
After thinking about it and looking at my emotions and how I handle that, they didn't really have nothing to do with you. I've been handling these emotions for a long. So you know what? I got a counselor I'm gonna go see next week. Why don't we have too many of those type of conversations? Dan, you know what? Thank you for opening up and letting me know where you was wrong at. But even from that, this is why I learned within myself how to respond and react. Even though you're in
Mhm.
the wrong, this puts me in a better situation when that happens. Hey, I can. Where's the real work? So whatever that acceptance is, if it's to move on or if it's to stay and fight out, be honest with yourself and ask yourself, where was the real work done? Right?
Yeah.
Was there any attempt to do real work, or like you alluded earlier, was I just here for the good times, or was I here until I was exposed, the damage in me, or the things I haven't learned
Mhm.
was exposed, or was I here until you showed me that you were an imperfect person?
Mhm.
Wow, I got to question your intent in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, just because we get to that point of acceptance, yeah, there are people out here who can live with the fact that they've done people wrong. There are people who can live with themselves by making themselves the victim and really, hey, I didn't do you wrong, and you know, I'm not saying you fight that because that's dangerous. That's where you can hurt your own self now.
Right. Right.
But the reality of it is, if you really come from someone, if you ever called yourself loving someone, there's a lot more responsibility that needs to be put on the table. And I just think, Dan, what it honestly comes down to, can people have honest conversations with themselves? Because I'm a firm believer, if you can't have an honest conversation with yourself, how can you have it with me? Right?
That in itself is the battle.
Right. Like people can only meet you on a level in which they've met themselves.
Correct. And some
And
people ain't really met.
say that again.
I said some people haven't really met themselves. Really, they don't
Because
really
they've been
know
running.
themselves.
They've been running their whole lives. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Carlos asked me earlier, he was like, man, should these be called symptoms instead of stages? And I said, no, stages. Because symptoms is something that we can take or do some to alleviate it. That's not
Mhm.
the case. Sometimes I may deal with depression and I just have to manage that. I have to manage my
Correct.
anger. I have to manage that denial. I have to manage that
Mhm.
from a good or bad point. And like
Right.
you said, we may find ourselves going to and from these stages, but that's part of life, right? Depending on what I've been through, what I've gone through, what have you, the lack of help that I've gotten, the lack of professional help, I may need someone to love me in that space to where, look, I can manage it. And then you have to have that conversation, right? But my whole thing, what I hope people got from this down is, do we really do the work based on, like you said, initially who that person meant in our lives? Or do we take it down and, all of a sudden now it ain't worth nothing the whole 9 yards? I think we throw a lot of people away by simply refusing just to do the work on self. And we have an idea of the work we want others to do, but we haven't done it ourselves, you know, and we miss out on a great opportunity that, hey, we should be able to better each other, right? Pointing the finger who did wrong, digging deep into, drawing our line in the sand, like what is that really helping, or even like the isolation, which sometimes people use as a resolution. Well, I'm just gonna be by
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Yeah.
You won't be by yourself, or you won't be responsible to the hurt and damage you do to people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
eh, okay, right? Um, I love what you said, where you said this stage can lead to personal growth and resilience over time. I think one of the key components down there that we miss, and you can chime on this if you want to, that we miss out on relationships. We talk about the looks and the hanging out and all of this, and we missed the opportunity. What if God blesses us with someone who can help us with our actual weaknesses? Like, what if we have someone that can actually challenge us to be a better version of ourselves? This day and age, we throw that type of person away,
I
and we
think
we
I
put our
think
hands
with that.
around we put our hands around the one who lied to us. Who act
Mhm.
like we're okay. That's what we want. Go ahead.
I think even with that, like you said, having a person who can kind of help you better yourself. Some people don't want to better themselves. Some people are okay with where they are, and to have somebody that's going to hold them accountable. Mm, some people don't want that. They're okay
Yeah,
with being on the level that they're on. So when they get somebody like that, they're like, oh, nah, you got to go. Like, I need somebody who's not going to see all my BS. You know what I'm saying? Who's not going to see where I falter or where I fall short at. Who's going to want to help me be a better person. I don't want that. I want the person who's going to kind of just let me do me. That's the easier way, because when you have somebody who does want to hold you accountable and want to help you do the work, some people don't want to do that work. They're okay with being stagnant and kind of, low hanging fruit. Because actually having to do work, it's hard.
yeah,
Change is hard. If it was easy, everybody would be changing, right?
yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of people kind of just, you know, kind of like throw them away, because it's like, oh, you really see me. Like, you can really see like where I like me. And some people don't want to be seen.
It's sad that we live in a world where being exposed to our true selves is shunned.
Hmm.
We'd rather be too good of a good person than to realize that I can be a good person with some ugly ways,
Hmm.
right? I'm good all the time, 24/7, right? Knowing the damage I've been through, knowing the things I've been through, but I'm a good person. It's the
Right.
mindset. But
Hmm.
the reality is, then I realized, oh, James has had to realize, okay, you can be a good person. You are. You want to be.
Hmm.
But until you handle and get help for the ugly parts of you, that is all you will ever be.
Yeah.
You will be a good person with ugly parts. And when your ugly parts hurt other people or other people call them out, it doesn't mean that they are bad. Because that person ultimately has to choose. If I'm trying to be with you long term, or I'm giving you any of my time, right? Or
Yes.
emotional parts of me, do I run the risk of that ugliness getting on me, not knowing how it can affect me, and run the risk that you may not see it?
Hmm.
So now I'm hurting and I'm dealing with something that comes from you and you don't see it. And when I try to bring it up to you and you don't see it, guess what? I'm the bad person. All because you've accepted the fact that, hey, your ish don't stink. It's
Right.
always the other person, right? So I think when it's all said and done, we have to have honest conversation with ourselves again. That's why this conversation I think was so important. Having that pillar and that foundation of the four pillars of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, being able to identify what's the real emotion I'm feeling. And notice tonight, we did not talk about who's right first, who's wrong first. Both ways, they don't justify throwing people away. But I have
Mhm.
to have some self-awareness. I have to have self-regulation, some accountability. I have to show empathy and understanding because if that other person is wrong, then guess what? That don't mean I throw them away if they genuinely are sincere in their remorse.
Right.
Even if I'm wrong, give me the grace to choose. And then we have to have those social skills. How do we put this together and move forward?
Mhm.
Not the easy route where we're just throwing people away. And as you can see, that grief can be real. We can lose person in a moment and run and think just some simple disagreement, a
Yeah.
real conversation. We're throwing this person away, and then we wonder why we get another person. Or we just try to stay to ourselves, and guess what? We don't get to grow. Problem still there. It's just lying
Um,
until the next time we deal with another person, right? You guys, this has been a great one, Dan. The 5 stages of relationship grief. I was concerned how we were going to navigate it because, again, a lot of people associate grief with just the loss of a loved one. But
mhm.
even in relationship, there is grief to be had, and
Yes.
depending on how we handle these 5 stages, from an emotional, a high emotional intelligence depends on, quite frankly, like you said, whether or not we get through that thing with the person that's for us, or what I think a lot of times down we don't realize, like we can lose out on the person that's for us.
Yeah. It's very true. And people have lost out on the person that was for them.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody who did chime in. Latoya, I saw you chimed in. Appreciate you always supporting. I want to thank Frankie and Carlo from manning the comments. Keep the conversation going, even though when this podcast is over, we would love to hear from you guys. Even if you have a story or opportunity you want to share your story, we would love to see if you'll be a good fit as a guest on the podcast. Thank you guys who tuned in to Unfiltered King podcast, our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and follow that. Thank you to the ones who follow on our Facebook page. And then, of course, those who join me on my personal page. Thank you guys for actually chiming in. 5 stages of relationship grief. You guys, the reason why, in closing, the reason why we had this conversation here, and I feel it was important, is that in a world where we throw people away so quickly, realize it'll be your
Mhm.
time. That's why I said it's not about right or wrong. We all gonna fall short of the glory of God, right? We're all gonna do something that offends someone. Some of it's gonna be greater than others, but we all want a fair opportunity to say that ultimately, if I meant this to you yesterday, if it can change so easy the next day, then yeah, I got to go back and look at that. That was that even going to work in the first place, right? And it's all
Mhm.
about using our emotional intelligence. And when we have those grieving moments, we don't double down and justify and base it solely on another person, but we take a look at ourselves. This has been the Unfiltered Kings podcast. Again, I want to thank you all for joining in. Make sure that you follow the audio on Podbean. That is the app that we're using, so download that to your smartphones. If there's none further from you, download. I think you had some final points. Now, do you want to go touch on those 3 points right there? I like those 3 points that you had at the end, and then we'll get up out of here.
Okay. I'm literally just laying on my computer now.
Oh, you want me to go? You want me to go shout them out right quick to you?
Yeah, because
Okay, so her additional notes, you guys, was grief is a highly individual process. Not everyone will experience all stages or in a linear fashion.
So yeah, so I mean, you had already said it in the beginning. Basically, um, there obviously there's 5 stages. However, we're not gonna all go through all 5 stages. Not only are we not gonna go through all 5 stages, they're not gonna be in some sequential order. A lot of times, some people may start off with depression. You get what I'm saying, and then it could go to anger, and then that you could end it there, or you know what I'm saying. You may just be like, I don't know, unavoiding and just accept that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's done and you're just okay with the relationship kind of ending. Because that's
yeah,
just in you to be that way.
yeah. And I think that's the importance of effectively communicating, right? Like this could be new to some people, right? This could be trial and error, and just because people, learn this tonight, don't mean that, it's gonna be like on the matrix. And so I think that's why you have to really ask yourself, was you really in it for the long term, or were you in it until you shut down? Um, the next point you had, you said understanding these stages can aid in empathy and support for others experiencing grief.
Yeah, so basically, when you have gone through something similar, and you're able to kind of like talk about it, you can kind of, or someone you know is going through it and they're kind of talking about it, and it might be something similar to kind of what you've gone through. You can kind of assist them with kind of going through the stages of the grief, because you kind of already been there. So knowing that you've already kind of done the work to get yourself through it, other people may be able to kind of latch on to your scenario, and it could help them kind of get through a similar scenario that they may be going through as well.
And Dan, I'm just gonna throw this out here, and I'll say this one for next. What if the other person is grieving at the same time as you? They're just grieving differently. What if they are really have identified where they hurt you at, and they really want to fix it, but you stuck on anger? What if they really want to show their remorse, but you're stuck on denial? I don't believe you. I think it was this.
Well, that has happened in a ton of relationships. People have been grieving at the same time and on two different types of grief. And again, you just kind of got to go through the motions, where you may feel like that person, isn't really doing X, Y, and Z. Then that's kind of like a trust imbalance in the scenario, because this person has obviously hurt you, in a multitude of ways, but magically now we're both grieving the
Right.
relationship that you clearly didn't want. You get what I'm saying? So, so
Yeah.
I can see where one person could kind of side eye the other person. I've even done something similar to that. When I was grieving a relationship I was in, I kind of gave, my partner at the time, like, I'm like, hey, like, I'm about to exit because I need, this ain't it.
Yeah.
And I think kind of like maybe like a couple weeks down the line, my partner kind of came back and was like, "Hey, you know, um, I'm
Empathy.
depressed." You know what I'm saying? And I've started doing the work, and even at the time I was just so angry. I'm like, "How dare you?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, do you really
Yeah.
care about what work you're doing? Like, you should
Yeah.
have been doing this work when we were together.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I think.
diabolical. I had to tell you to exit for you to not want to do work. So then you're in that moment of like, are you really doing work? Because
Yeah.
like,
I
so
think
I
it's
can
something
see
be said.
where,
I think it's something be said. The same person who speak these positive affirmations and these loving words in you, and they go so deep.
yeah,
Sometimes God uses the same people to spit your real ugly truth to you, and it pierces and go deep.
hmm,
And in itself, take emotion and telling this is the same person who spoke life for me and
right,
spoke these things, and I like them.
hmm,
But I got to give that person the respect that if they have to point out these negatives or areas of opportunities to me, that they're the same person. I can't change them, and I think it's so easy to
right,
forget all that positive stuff and what you say to me, like Jesus, like woman to lie to you. Which I think it brings you
right.
to your final statement where you said encourage open discussions about grief to normalize feelings and experiences associated with loss.
Yeah, so kind of in the same notion, like I think a lot of times people do in relationships, they kind of just like go off into Neverland and they don't speak, you know. But there's still some ill, will towards that person, or there's no real closure. I know people say you don't really need closure, but I think in some scenarios it's okay to have closure. So that is where it would be an opportunity for both parties to kind of discuss, I guess, where they faltered, so that I guess for future relationships, or if, I don't know, magically they become back together, they kind of know how to operate, in the future.
Yeah, I think that's why I have a problem when I see stuff on social media. Like, I'll cut someone off like it's nothing, or I'll like you pride yourself being a human with all these range of emotions that God allow us to
Mhm.
get to interpret, and you pride yourself off for acting like a tree off a branch. It,
Right.
it won't change that tree if that branch just get cut off. Like I think that's problematic in itself, and so it kind of goes
Mhm.
back to your point. I think sometimes we became the victim and defending ourselves so much that
Yeah.
we're trying to protect the real feelings that we just become stoic and just
Yeah.
dead, right? To I don't even
Hmm.
have to feel anymore, right? Because if I feel it, may open that conscious to where it's trying to tell me, hey,
Yes.
you're wrong or you're some more to do
Right.
it. No, it's going to kind of save face and go on about my day, so to speak, you know. Um, but look, this was a great conversation. Again, like I said, let's keep the conversation going. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit us in our inbox. Continue the conversation up under this video. Thank you to all who tuned in tonight. We will be back next week with another live broadcast from Unfiltered King Podcast. But until then, you guys take care and we'll talk soon. Remember, have the conversation between men and women to each other, not at each other. Thanks.